7 o'clock. Call this planning commission meeting to order. Welcome everybody for coming. We're going to excuse Commissioner Nelson. She's not here tonight. Commissioner Reed says he'll be here later, so we're still expecting him to show up for this. Thank you everybody for coming. Number 1, let's go to number 2, which is consent approval or planning commission minutes from August 9th, 2023. You all had an opportunity to review them. And do any of you have any concerns? Then I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
I motion to approve the minutes from our last planning commission meeting dated August 9th of 2023.
Motion, Brad, you want to second that?
I will second that, yes.
All right, so got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
That was all of us, so there's no opposed. All right, that moves us to item number 3, which is to elect a chairman and vice chairman for the remainder of the year. So Commissioner Shakespeare left us, and that's left me in charge as vice chair for a little bit, but we wanted to make this formal, so who wants to nominate somebody for chair or vice chair? You nominate yourself, you nominate someone else.
I'm not around enough.
I'll nominate myself for chair. No one else wants to. You can enter the running for it though too. We can have 2 or 3 people try for this.
I'm nominating Nathan for chair too. So there's 2 of us.
No, you're the vice chair.
Bill, what do you think?
Please.
What's your vote for chair and vice chair?
You and Nathan.
There you go.
Me and Nathan?
Nathan is the,
Nathan chair and me vice chair? That means we give you a chance to do it.
Yeah, sure.
After I did it all those years.
You don't want it back?
I want other people to have a lesson too. It's fun. I mean, it's a great experience.
Any other nominations? Or?
Yes.
Yes, we have to have a formal vote. I'm up for nomination for chair. All in favor of me being chair?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Alright, it's all of us. And Chad was nominated for vice chair. So all in favor of Chad being vice chair? Aye.
Absolutely.
Alright. That's voting passes unanimous. That'll take us to agenda item number 4. You guys ready for us? Perfect. Just want to make sure. Alright, item number 4 is discussion, action, and recommend to approve a conditional use permit, number 140, which is an application for a home occupation with visiting clientele for a life coaching business located at approximately 239 West, 1975 North. Jenny, can we get a review of the staff memo on this?
Absolutely. Thank you. So an application was received on August 11th for a conditional use permit for a home occupation. The home occupation will have visiting clientele, so a conditional use permit is required. The application for the business is for between 3 to 5 clients visiting per week for about a 1-hour increment between the hours of 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. The address of the home occupation is within the SAP zone, but a letter of permission has been received by the HOA president authorizing that this business is approved use for that area. So the staff memo includes the basis for issuance of conditional use permit and the home occupation standards. And the bolded standards in the home occupation code are the ones that are relevant to this occupation. And staff recommends approval with compliance to the home occupation standards and mitigating any negative impact against their community.
I don't see why coaching being something that will cause a nuisance or anything like that.
Was this your request?
Yes.
You mind coming forward mind telling us a bit more about what you're trying to do?
Yes. So a life coaching business, if you don't know, a lot of people think that it's like a therapy, but it's not really therapy because I'm not a licensed therapist. But it's just to help people that are stuck in life, either occupationally, something like that, that just need that extra support and establish goals and things like that. So I do a lot of it online, but there are some clients that really would like to come to the house and have the actual face-to-face.
Now, if I remember reading right, you have an extra parking spot that you would have them park on.
Yeah, it's right next to the garage, right in front of the house.
Okay.
And you're only having 3 to 5 clients per week.
Yeah, at the house, because most of them are online.
That's a fairly low volume for what we see for conditional use permits.
I know, I was like, 3 to 5, do I need approval? But I better get it.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah.
People come, yeah, and your hours of operation are also a lot lower because the code allows you to go from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. and you're only looking to go from 11 to 3.
Mm-hmm. For now, I mean, as it expands, is that open if it does get approved for those more hours?
If we allow it in there, if we put it, the conditions as the hours you've got, you'd be stuck with those. But if we put the conditions as in the code, then you would be allowed to go for that full amount.
Okay.
So do you want us to go to the 7 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Yeah,
to give you that flexibility?
Yeah, I would love that. Just in case the clientele expands and stuff like that, that would be great. Thank you.
That's
Yes.
a good idea.
Does anything need to happen with her application? Or she?
We can include that in the conditional use permit.
I just know the application indicated 11 degrees. So I was wondering.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, that's great. Life coaching, that's so interesting. Do you mind just telling me how you got interested in life coaching and what you find fulfilling about doing it?
Yes. So I worked at Associated Foods Distribution Center as a supervisor, as a department head for 20 years. And a lot of the people called me the warehouse counselor, things like that. People all have, my entire life, sought me out to tell their problems to, or just as that, sounding board for them. So I've loved what I do. I just feel like that's my purpose, is to listen to people and guide them in a direction that's going to be most helpful for them in life.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. So, you have to be a special person to work with people like that in circumstances.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. And, you're close enough really to 2000 North, I think, you can park there. And
Yeah.
there's no other modifications with your house or the property or anything, hours. So do you want hours 7 a.m. or 8 a.m.? If we broaden those out, what would be more
I was going to say
reasonable
7. I
for
can't
you?
see myself working that early, but 8. Yeah, I think 8.
8 would be better. Like 8 to
10.
5?
8 to
6?
8 to 6 would be great,
8 to 6.
actually. Yes.
Okay. And I don't see any other problems, and you passed it with the HOA, and I'm sure you'll have to live by all the requirements that they have, of course, in the HOA as well.
More restricted than
That's
ours.
exactly what I
The
was
bolded ones in
thinking.
here include no outdoor storage, but I can't see a life coach needing outdoor storage for a
Right.
business.
Yeah, exactly.
It occurs in the house.
Pretty
Maybe
simple.
less than a quarter of your house used for it.
Just one office. Yeah.
Sounds awesome.
Vibrations.
Do either of you guys have any?
No, I think it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. So, you want to be we're ready for
Motion, then yeah. I get the hours.
Ready.
I'm still studying.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
You have any questions from your studying?
No.
Okay.
I
Bill,
saw
do you
my-
want to do it?
I'll make that motion, I guess. Unless
Unless Bill wants to. I just like including everybody.
Okay.
I had a few to make it.
I'll make a motion that we approve conditional use permit for conditional use permit number 140, which is the home occupation for life coaching at approximately 239 West, 1975 North, subject to the conditions in the home occupation code, which is 11/10/20, and specifying the hours as 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and within that.
Okay. We've changed on you 3 times.
I was just getting ready to say, can we maybe do it till 7, just because you guys have been so flexible, but if it's 6 will work too, just in case I have somebody that wants to get in after
I
work.
can amend that motion to change the hours to the full amount allowed in the code, which is...
That won't put you in any trouble with the HOA.
Yeah.
No obligation.
Okay.
So I'll amend that motion to broaden the hours to the full amount allowed in the code.
Do you want to specify how many clients at one time, so we have that?
Specifying no more than one client at a time to accommodate your parking needs at the site, so that we don't have traffic congestion there.
Between 3 and 5.
Well, it's 3 and 5 a week, but that can grow with the business. So as long as we don't get one per
session.
session, that way they're not backing us in the road because we need to park. I have a motion, we have a second.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
That was all of us, so it carries unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you guys. You guys weren't scary. I made a big scary story up in my head.
Oh, I'm glad we're not.
So there is a 15-day appeal period if we receive any appeal comments based on the, and after that point you can come in and sign the conditional use permit.
After 15 days.
After 15 days.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you
Have a
guys.
good evening.
Okay, you too. Thank you.
All right. That brings us to agenda item number 5, which is another conditional use. That's discussion, action, or recommend to approve conditional use permit 141, which is a home occupation visiting clientele for permanent makeup located at approximately 245 East Larsen Lane. Jenny, can we get a review of the memo for that one?
Absolutely, thank you. So on August 14th, we received the application for this conditional use permit for the home occupation for permanent makeup, a permanent makeup business. The hours would be set between the time of 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. at approximately 245 East Larsen Lane. This application was received, the issuance of conditional use permit regulations are outlined there, as well as the home occupation standards with the bolded applicable standards, which do include the newly adopted standard by the City Council at last evening's council meeting, which allows a permanent makeup unit. So staff does recommend approval of this conditional use permit, subject to the home occupation code and any other mitigating staff issues or commissioner requests.
Here, you can come up and tell us a little bit about what you were planning on doing here.
Okay, so I think I put my hours 8 to 5 too, and I didn't know that was a thing. I might want to do 8 to 8, just because my husband works, and so when he gets home, he can take the kids, and then I can do my thing. But I think we kind of talked about this last time a little bit. The health department has codes that I have to meet as well, so it's entering through the basement door, and then I have to have a certain amount of sinks and things like that. It takes up less than 4% of my house, the area that I'm going to be using. And then as far as parking wise goes, I have a driveway that's a 40 by 20, so it allows 4 cars there. I'm only going to have 1 person at a time. That's also health department code. And then they can have 1 person with them, so just 1 client at a time. I also have a circular drive that they can park there, or the parking that's on Larsen Lane now since the remodeled the road. So
does the permanent makeup create any fumes or noises or vibrations or anything like that? You're gonna smell bad for the neighbors?
no, nothing there.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure with cosmetics, sometimes you can get colors
Yeah,
and such.
it's not anything like hair. It doesn't
There won't be anybody laughing with her.
Well, me all the time, but
At least not
it'll
with
just
your
make this
clients.
guy mad, the neighbor.
Any deliveries?
No,
Product, you're not selling anything?
No.
Yeah,
No retail.
right.
no,
Okay.
Any other employees, or is it just you?
just me. Yep,
So it does limit employees to people who reside there. So,
yep. No, just me.
yep.
Okay, and it sounds like you're aware of the ordinance and that you're trying to follow, which is fantastic.
I don't think there's anything else we'd have an issue with.
Yeah.
I was
Exactly.
a little confused with the drawings of your house as to where it was.
Yeah, that's the basement level that you're looking at.
Okay.
And then per the health department, we were trying to see which room it was going to be. So the 2 circled rooms
Okay.
were going to be either the ones. And they came by and they said either one could go. So it's just what we want to remodel and how much carpet we want to rip out. So
And that's the basement in the back, so.
yeah, they entered through this side basement door and then it's just a straight shot to the room where it's at.
Any parking, hours reasonable? Product delivered?
That's not gonna change the residential character of this, so I don't see any other
Yeah.
issues with this one either.
Where's the code on this one? I wouldn't mind taking.
So no parking on Larsen, right?
But code on this one?
I have plenty of parking that
plenty
they
of
can park. Yeah.
You referenced last time in yours.
Is there a thing that they can't park in the parking strip during hours of parking there? Is there anything saying that?
In the code.
There's no non-parking indicated.
Yeah.
for
Just as long as there's
No, not
enough
at all.
parking for the people there and it doesn't interfere with the rest of the neighborhood.
Okay.
She's just right on the street.
Yeah.
We just don't want to turn it into a parking lot for
Yeah.
a business or you've got
Yeah,
20
we have 2
people there.
neighbors down that have like 7 cars, so I'm pretty sure I'm fine. We're good there.
Just, that's the main concern with
Okay.
that, is that it doesn't interfere with the street and,
Yeah,
you know, not a business that needs a parking lot the size of Walmart's.
no, no.
Because
And really, my driveway is plenty big enough,
Yeah.
we shouldn't even have
it's
anybody on the
spread out
road,
the people
but
you've
just
got
wondering.
there,
Yeah.
Sounds good.
So,
Any other questions? I'm good.
I think we're ready to.
Do you gentlemen care if I offer the motion?
Go for it.
I will offer a motion to approve or to forward along an approval for this conditional use permit. Number 141, the application for home occupation and with visiting clientele for permanent makeup located at approximately 245 East Larsen Lane, subject to the Harrisville City Municipal Code 111020.020, and all recommendations listed in there, as well as the staff memo dated August 31st, 2023. I think that's.
Did you want to amend the hours she's requesting?
Oh, yes, and we want to amend the hours from 8 to 8, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Motion. I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
That was all of us again, so it passes unanimously.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Anyone
Yeah,
tell
good
you
luck.
about your 15-day appeal
Okay.
period, in case anybody heard us approve it and says they don't want it,
Okay,
and then you can come in and sign paperwork.
I
okay.
don't think you'll have any problem.
Huh?
I don't think you'll have any problem.
I don't think so, as nobody showed up for the last 2. Hoping. Thanks,
That's a pretty good
guys.
trailer.
Well, thank you for coming.
You're not opposing, are you?
No.
All right.
So you gonna bring us cookies or? I thought you'd have done that.
Sorry.
Yeah, no bribery.
Can't do that
We gotta stay clean.
No cookies allowed.
All right. That'll move us on to agenda item number 6, which is public comment. We got a 3-minute maximum if you want to come up and say anything. No? All right. staff follow-up. So I understand we've got training. We'll get to that. Any follow-up before we get to our training?
Anything recent on any of the projects that have been going on in the city?
Nothing new that you're not aware of, I believe. We are working on the subdivision ordinance. We are having to repeal and reenact our subdivision ordinance because the state code has changed the requirements for applications. So we are in the process of that. We're hoping to hold the public hearing and have your first look at that draft next month at the October council meeting. It may get bumped to November depending on how many staff changes we make, but it's looking really good. So we'll have that for you. So that we have to report on, and then we have our training tonight. And I encourage you, if you're looking for training hours, the Land Use Institute has some online training courses that you can take to meet the hours requirements for that. That's all staff has.
I have a question concerning the tall building and then the easement of the road
On the
that passed on 750. So the road passed,
But the height didn't.
but the height didn't. Now, is the road in condition to whether that building does take place, or will there be a road cut through no matter what now?
It's not, no matter what, it's with development, they're allowed to have access to that. That doesn't mean it will happen. They would want to build something that would necessitate a road there
Right.
first. So it's not a guaranteed road there. It's just a possibility
Just
with some development in the future.
personal interest in that. I need to know whether I need to start moving things from the side of where that road will be, since that's my property. So, yeah, that's why I didn't come to a couple of meetings. Conflict of interest.
So that there's no plan for a public road. The code changed to allow access to that road, but there's no public road going in there. It would be a private
Would be afraid
road
of
that would
business
come.
access if it did.
Approval would come through this body for a commercial site plan before anything would be constructed.
I just didn't know how that took place.
And with that height staying the same, it's unlikely that development would be.
Yeah,
We heard something
that and along with really unstable business plan.
from the business of the
The developer and I have had one conversation since that, and talking about other possible avenues that could be utilized for something like that, but I have not seen or we haven't received any more application or anything from that project.
On a personal note on that, just public awareness, he's not even made an offer on the land.
So yeah, the city isn't involved in the
Yeah.
private sale and purchases of private properties. So it's not uncommon for a land use application to be received by the city from a developer that doesn't own property yet.
I gotcha.
We have to have the property owner's permission to take action on any land use application if the developer is a different person than the property owner, but it doesn't prohibit those things from taking place. It's just we have standards in place to make sure that the property owner is aware and has given permission for that to take place.
Perfect.
So we don't concern ourselves with whether or not they own property or anything like that. We just make sure that the application meets the city's standards and code.
Perfect.
That's our responsibility, which I think we'll go into a little bit more with our training.
and no further changes.
That was a good prelude.
Any updates on that?
No updates, unfortunately, on the golf course outside of the developer has indicated to the city that he's looking for a buyer for the project. That's all he's communicated to me.
So I've had a couple of residents ask about, what if a fire takes place over there? Who's going to be responsible for that? The developer or the city?
Yeah, the developer is responsible for what happens on his property, and Northview Fire is aware, and they have indicated that they would respond if there's an emergency on the property.
Private properties and private property owners responsible.
Yeah, it would be good.
No, it wouldn't be good.
I mean, You'd think they'd at least go around there and cut a fire break.
Thanks for the update. Appreciate
Okay.
that. Right.
There's nothing else. I think we should go to our training.
Yeah.
Commissioners, thank you. I know one member here, but my name is Brody Flint. I've been contracted with the city for a year and a half now. I've been an attorney for a decade now, so that's kind of great to think about personally. I represent a few cities and special entities. So yeah, happy to be here tonight. I'm sure this is everyone's favorite topic, right? We're going to come and get trained by an attorney.
Really good.
Brad, Commissioner Elmer, knows me. I hope, first of all, I'm just going to say this at the outset. I've been accused of being very black and white, and I try to, because I do feel like that's my job and responsibility. But don't take anything I say personal. We're going to talk through some things. I have a little spiel that we'll kind of talk about, and then I'd love questions if you guys have them, and we'll hopefully just kind of educate not only you, but anyone who's listening in on this beautiful meeting to learn, right? So I have a couple of things that I always read with Planning Commission. There's a book that the ULCT has. It's a great book. It was written by Dave Church. I'm sure if you're around city government at all, everyone kind of knows Dave Church. He's been an attorney in Utah for I think 35 plus years. He one time told me that there was literally so I was born in 1985. He told me one time from 1988 to 2012, he attended at least 2.5 Planning Commission or City Council meetings every week of his life. So he's kind of the know-it-all of everything. So I'm first going to read you what he wrote about the city attorney, so you guys kind of know just a little bit, and then we'll shift into planning. On a side note, I went to school out in Iowa. I finished my law degree out in Iowa. And I sent this paragraph to all of my classmates, and it's basically spread nationwide now what he says about attorneys. So he starts out this way: attorneys are wonderful human beings. They make fine neighbors, in-laws, and golfing partners. They are relatively harmless and pleasant to be around. If only you remember one important thing: all attorneys, and I mean all attorneys, are insufferable. They cannot help themselves. They are trained that way. The standard formula for law school is to take nice, reasonably intelligent young people and then set them apart from others and tell them they are special. The school tells them they are special because they got into law school and others did not. These law students then spend 3 years socializing only with each other, and at the end of that 3-year period of time, they are told that their time and opinions are worth money. If this type of training does not turn a person into a jackass, nothing will. I, your author, am an attorney. I am married to one and have a son who is one, so I speak from experience. So there's a caveat for me, right? And that's where we come from. I personally find that actually a prophetic paragraph about most attorneys. So there's that. So we shift to you guys. It's always a question I have and get asked a lot is like, why do we even have a planning commission, right? What are we supposed to be doing? So I'm going to read this paragraph from him. Some confusion has arisen over what power a planning commission or individual planning commissioners really has. The answer is not much. Planning commissioners are not policy-making bodies. They recommend policy to the policymakers. The requirement of state law is that planning commission is to be involved in making recommendations to the municipality's legislative body regarding certain land use regulations. A municipal council must consider the recommendation but does not have to take it. It can just say thanks but no thanks to any recommendation of the planning commission. I'm going to pause here. I think you guys all know that, right? You guys recommend things. Sometimes the city council follows your wisdom. Sometimes they, in their infinite wisdom, they don't, right? Okay. If the municipality does not accept the recommendations, there is nothing the planning commission do. The state code specifically provides that the municipality's council can adopt a recommended ordinance, reject it, or revise it. Now, this is not to say that planning commissions are not important. City councils and mayors believe they also have to be politicians, having a great need for well thought out and studied recommendations in the area of planning and zoning. Planning commissioners who provide this service are invaluable to a community. Planning commissioners who see their role as representing special interests or specific neighborhoods are not as helpful in the planning process and may actually hinder good planning. So, a couple things there. The recommendations that you go through, the public hearings that you have for the big projects, for the zoning changes, for those type of things. And speaking of someone who has sat on multiple different meetings at different levels, it would be insufferable for some city councils to have to go through the public hearings and the things you guys do. It would just be, quite frankly, a political nightmare, and it could go out of hand in multiple different ways. So what you guys do is really valuable in that regard. Some of the things, and you guys know this, right? You guys are in charge of planning, long-term planning. It all starts here. All of that things you guys do. I think you guys know that. I don't know. When's the last time you guys did your general plan updated?
2019.
Yeah. So not that long ago, 3 years ago. The general plan started with this body, right? And you guys did a lot of the legwork to get that going. Very important. You guys are in charge of, and again, start those planning and land use regulations. We sat in here while you guys talked about special permits and whether someone was following the ordinance to get their home businesses. It's a very nice thing where unelected persons go through that with what should be a more neutral position, and you're really establishing criteria. Yes, no. Are the boxes checked? Are they not, right? Now, you put politicians into that type of analysis and it's not a good thing. So, supervisor. You review developments, you engage with the public, right? You just brought up that someone asked you what was going on with a certain piece of property. They asked you that, I'm assuming because they know you're planning commissioner, right? Very important. And that grows and that helps your city council. You guys are an advisory role. I tell this to politicians, they don't usually listen to me, but the smart ones do. Politicians can save themselves so many political consequences if they will just listen to their planning commission. Because whether their decision is good, bad, or ugly, if they tell everybody, I'm following the people who listen to everybody, who looked through all the ordinances and gave us a recommendation. I'm sorry you don't like the decision. It's not political. It's not da-da-da-da-da. It's because this body who put the time and work in told me this is what they recommend. Now, if a politician chooses to use that, it's a great benefit, right? And they can help themselves out if they would listen to you guys, if they do. And there's a few other things that we talked about. So, again, thank you, one, for your service. It's very important. But now we're going to kind of shift into the do nots. First thing we'll talk about is Open and Public Meeting Act. That is the, I don't know how to say it, right? That's the grand thing that everyone worries about. And it's good that you do. To be honest with you, and this is my experience, very rarely have I found someone who willingly and openly is trying to get around that. Most of the issues that I've come up with that in my career are really honest mistakes or somebody that didn't quite understand the next step of what was happening. And so it's good to talk about, but I'm not, I think that this is rarely, at least in the communities that I work with, this is rarely something that somebody's legitimately trying to get around. Especially at planning commission members, right? There is no value to you, or should be no value to you in discussing things privately or negotiating on behalf of the planning commission with persons, right? That's what I'm talking about. I have never in my career been involved with a planning commissioner who was getting $100 from the developer to sway a vote, right? I've never had that. I've never even had the scent of that coming up. So the biggest thing, anytime there's a quorum, anytime there's 3 of you or more in one place, you just don't talk business. That's the biggest thing, right? I'm sure you all go bowling, or you go to church, or you go to the football game or the soccer game. You can all be there. Have fun, right?
Talk social.
But talk about you guys. Don't talk about Harrisville City. I mean, that's the biggest one. And then another thing is conversations outside of planning commission. Once there's an application in, talk with that person. I just asked her name, I forgot her name already. Dawn, who was just right here, right? If you met Dawn in the grocery store, clearly say hello, right? You can, maybe your neighbors with her, whatever. But don't have a conversation with Dawn about the application that's coming up in a few days. That one, actually, there are some people who have gotten in some trouble for things like that. Again, mostly innocent, right? I don't think Dawn's handing, again, a $100 bill, but it just technically violates the ordinance. It just looks bad. One simple test, and this is not a legal test at all, this is just the test created by Brody. If you ask yourselves, what is this going to look like? It used to say newspaper, but those things are about dead. What is this going to look like on Facebook? Right? What's the headline of Facebook of your interaction? If you're okay with it, you're probably fine. If you're like, ugh, right? So, again, I don't see a huge issue, but just be careful with that. Those are the biggest ones for planning commissioners. And again, where you should be outside of the political realm, there's really no value in not doing things publicly and open. So, kind of pause there. Any questions or concerns about Open Public Meeting Act or anything else really at this point?
I one thing. So when it's a legislative issue like a zoning change, we are still allowed to go out and get feedback. We're just not debating and deliberating on that.
And when you say go get feedback, what are you talking about?
So if I'm going out and looking at the property that's going to be zoned,
Sure.
I can still talk to the neighbors. I'm just not making decisions based on that, and I'm not telling them I'm going to vote one way or the other.
So, perfect.
That's not an
Perfect question.
administrative
It's a very
decision,
good question.
but
Okay.
a legislative one.
It's a legislative one.
Yep.
The simple answer is you're okay to do with that. The more complicated answer, and quite frankly, it really doesn't come up in Utah, so we don't have a lot of guidance, is by doing that, have you somehow clouded some decision in the future? Again, difficult. Here's the scenario I tell everybody. I think it would take the right amount of circumstances, right? Let's say you do that, and big bad developer sees you talking to the neighbors, and the neighbors and the developer hate each other, and the neighbor threw a tomato at his truck earlier. Everyone knows it's a hostile relationship, right? Because they don't want the gas station, whatever it is, okay? Vote doesn't go his way, irregardless of you, right? But then he hires some attorney who's an idiot, right? Big jerk. And he's like, wait a minute. You got planning commissioners plotting with the neighbor right here. You saw it, right? Do you have pictures of it? Do you have something? Is that going to happen? Really, probably not. But I've always kind of been cautious of saying, here's an easy way to think about it. If an attorney who has to ethically take the exact opposite position you have, could they twist what you're doing to help their client? Probably.
That depends on the situation.
Yeah. So just be careful. Just use your head. Again, we're talking 1% of the time, right? You can certainly go out and see things and talk with people and take input. You know, I tell everybody, if it gets to a point, your response should be, please come to our meeting and put it on the record.
Right.
Right? Tell everyone your position.
And I told people that too.
And that should be your response.
Yeah.
So again, I'm kind of using that 1% situation where I do think you have to be careful though, because I think it's getting there. Utah is in an interesting place legally where you certainly have some influences on pushing state officials and state legislation to really kind of crack down on some cities and their processes and what people do. And so we're going to see even more legislation, especially in the next 2 to 4 years, with regard to our processes. Again, using kind of some of those odd examples that people take as the general practice on issues like that. So,
well, I think too, you look at it, everybody's got a camera all the time, right? And with some of the people that have come into the state, you know, that want to see change, they're looking at the good old boys clubs, right?
Absolutely.
In small towns, and sometimes just looking to cause problems so that they can push their own things.
Absolutely.
So I think your advice earlier is perfect. Yeah, go look at the property, form an opinion by looking at it. If somebody comes to talk to you, do just that. Hey, if you've got an opinion, come to planning commission. Come tell us. Nothing's going to be more beneficial than, nothing's going to help telling me, but if you come tell the commissioner or the council,
then you can really, I mean, you're spot on. That's exactly right. And you know, everything is then everything is recorded or videoed. So just be careful with that. Again, we're talking a minority situation where that would apply. But yeah, and then too, like, be smart about it, right? Don't go to Don's house last night. Right? If you know things are coming up, go look at situation, go look at areas, look at photos, whatever you need to do.
With Don's thing, that's an administrative action.
Sure.
That's not a...
I'm just picking on Don because I can remember her name. Yeah. So any other questions?
What's the name of the book?
Oh, it's just the Powers and Duties. They come out with a new one every couple of years, kind of updated with case law and legislation. It goes through everything. I honestly refer to it all the time because it has basically everything you need to know about municipal government.
We can try and order some copies.
You can order some, and if you're going to order them, I'd actually wait. They're coming out with a new version in December.
Okay.
So I just order them.
I have a follow-up question to the zoning. What if you are the neighbor? Since we all live in the community. And what are the rules regarding that?
So the rules are actually very, very weak on what you can and can't do. Meaning, there's not a lot of guidance, one, but the rules allow citizens to govern themselves. So it's not a conflict of interest that you live next door. Okay? I personally would always disclose that. The conflict of interest where legally I can tell you you cannot do these things is when you have a vested financial interest. Okay? And even then, you still can sometimes vote if you disclose the conflict of interest. Now, I would tell you, I would advise you, if you're disclosing that you have a financial conflict of interest, just step down from the board. I don't think you have to actually under Utah.
And you can still participate in the discussion.
Absolutely. Yeah, we in a different municipality, I had a city council person who, they were doing a big zoning change to allow things. The property of this person bordered the property we were talking about. The zoning change would affect their property, and the zoning change, quite frankly, enhanced the value of their property quite a bit. That person, to their credit, said, I do have a financial interest in it. My property borders the property we're talking about. It will be affected by the zoning change. I am not. I'm stepping down from this discussion as, a person on the dais. They walked down, they sat in a chair, and they got back up in public comment and told the body why they should do it. So, and that was totally important, totally proper.
I'm glad you asked that because that's kind of weighed heavy on me with that situation for that other property. And, it's the things that you said, like right after planning commission meeting that night, the next day, one of the people who was here come through the community that has effect on 750 and put together a block party. They were having a big party at her house to talk about all that was going on. And she's there inviting me and looks across my yard and sees my pickup, which is clearly marked with all of my work markings, and remembered it in the parking lot here. And she goes, wait, you're on the planning commission. And I said, yeah. She didn't even say another word. She just put her car in reverse and backed out. And I was like, I'm glad that she relieved me of having to tell her, I won't be participating in your little party.
So I'm going to actually piggyback on this a little bit because it's a good point. The conflict of interest, and again, if you guys have questions, talk to Jenny. She has my cell phone number, and you're free to use it whenever. We'll talk through it if you think there's a potential conflict. Again, you're not a policy-making body, so most of your recommendations go up, and the things you do decide, it should be a checklist, right? It should be yes or no. That being said, if there's ever any question, get a hold of me. Now, the one thing I do want to say is, and this is, again, there's not like a do this, don't do this. It just doesn't exist. I wish it did. One thing that's important is when you have topics that are sensitive to you or personal to you, as a lot of things are, especially in a small community, I think it's important to be careful what questions you're asking. Right? Your question should be about the policy, about the decision. It shouldn't be personal. I'll tell you one example. Doing a site plan, okay? You're checking the boxes to make sure the site plan fits the code, fits the order, and how many have asked or how many have heard somebody, don't raise your hands, well, what color are you going to paint it? Give me one reason why a planning commissioner cares what color it is, unless the color is in the ordinance.
Sometimes they are.
Huh?
Sometimes they are.
Right. Most of the time they're not.
Right.
If I want to paint it fluorescent pink, what does it matter to you? Okay, now let's say I tell you it's fluorescent pink, and for some reason, it's not approved, or it doesn't go through. Now I have somebody saying, well, they were yelling at me about it being pink. Right?
Right.
So be careful with your questions. I think, and it's an easy thing to do. You're curious about the project, what's going on, what are these things? Your questions need to be about what you're deciding, not just information that somehow could show a bias. So be careful with that. One other thing too is, and this comes up, and I'm going to pick on Mr. Mimosa because I know him. He asks a question about a project, and well, what's going on with this person? This person doesn't even own the property. Comes up all the time. I'm not picking on it. I'm picking on it just because you said it. Happens all the time, okay? Should that or does that matter at all to what you guys decide? If the person is properly in front of you for a zoning request, their financial position, whether they're getting their loan through Wells Fargo or through mom and dad, whether they own it, whether you like what they're proposing to build, right? What does that matter? And I say that, like, not trying to be rude. It really doesn't. So just be careful with things like that. Okay. Any other questions at all? No? Okay. Same. Thanks for listening to me. Again, I don't mean this to be negative. All just kind of awareness of some of the things that can get out of hand.
You want to be straightforward. You want sugar-coated stuff.
No, I've actually never been accused of sugar-coating. So I'm hoping one time it happens.
Oh, that's good.
But no, I appreciate it. And again, questions come up, feel free to talk to Jenny, get my phone number. You guys can call me, you can shoot me an email. Happy to answer them when I can. The biggest thing I would just say is, my two biggest things that I hope all planning commissioners remember is don't do anything privately that you shouldn't. There's just no reason to. I mean, at all. Right? If the financial gain is such a great thing that you need to do it privately, like I would be sure. Right? We're not talking about those type of developments. We're not doing deals in a big city, pick the big city, right? Where it's bought by somebody who owns some shady stuff. So there's no reason to do anything of substance privately with the Open and Meeting Act. And then the second one is always just kind of have some thought to your questions, because I think ultimately that could be one of those things where even if it doesn't get us in trouble per se, like I've been to the legislature a few times, and you would be surprised how the legislatures will grab something that is really anecdotal or kind of an offhand comment, and they'll put that on like that is the way the process goes all the time. So just be think about why you're asking the question, what information do you need to answer the questions or get to the decision you're making. If there's no other questions, thanks. Sorry I took up so much.
No, thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, thanks guys.
Absolutely.
That's very helpful. It's great. Yeah.
All right. That concludes our commission and staff follow-up. So I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'm motion to adjourn.
Jordan, second.
I'll second that. Sorry, the guy that's late.
Still trying to catch up.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.